Welcome to HOA Anger. I did not steal a thing, and I proved it on camera. I am pressing submit right now, and Allison Drake is screaming at me from 3 feet away that the stash box behind the clubhouse is mine, and she is about to make it public. She has her phone on a gimbal, inches from my face, narrating her accusation like she is some kind of investigative reporter. The box is half hidden behind a planter, metal and beat up, and I have never seen it before in my life. She is saying the HOA storage inventory is missing, and I had access, so it has to be me. I work as a union electrician, and I have a home-based business license for side consulting that the HOA already hates. Allison is the board treasurer for the Desert Palms Community Association here in Denver, Colorado, and she has been looking for a reason to go after me for months. She waves a laminated policy sheet on a lanyard without letting me read it, and she is yelling that the rules changed yesterday and I should have known. I try to say I was at a job site all week, but she talks over me and says she has witnesses. That is her thing. She always says that. I have witnesses. The box is still sitting there, and she takes photos with her phone inches from my face, the gimbal shaking as she leans in. A neighbor is walking by, slowing down to watch, and Allison turns to them and says I had the only key to the storage closet last month, and now cash is missing from the clubhouse safe. That is a complete lie. I never had a key. I tell her that, and she smiles and says the HOA will bill me for the theft investigation. That is escalation step 1. She does not care about the truth. She cares about the pressure. I back up and say I need to see the actual complaint in writing. She pulls out 2 identical complaint forms from the red folder and holds them side by side, but she does not let me touch them. She says one is from last week and one is from this morning, and both mention my name. I cannot read the text from where I am standing, and she knows it. She says the board is meeting today and they are voting on whether to terminate my business license privilege. That hits hard. I run a small electrical consulting operation out of my townhouse, and the HOA has been hostile about it since I moved in 2 years ago. This neighborhood has a strict rental cap and a lot of resentment toward anyone who works from home. Allison folds the forms back into the red folder and taps it like it is evidence. She says I have until 5 this evening to respond to the hearing notice, or they are moving forward without me. I did not get a hearing notice. I tell her that, and she says she emailed it yesterday. I pull out my phone and check. Nothing. She shrugs and says that is my problem, not hers. Then she says something that will come back to haunt her later. We can tow first and explain later. She says it with this smug little smile, like she is daring me to push back. I do not say anything. I just take a mental note. She turns and walks back toward the clubhouse, still filming me with the gimbal, and I stand there holding my USB drive and trying to figure out what just happened. I get back to my truck and sit in the driver's seat for a minute, trying to think. The USB drive in my hand has work files on it, nothing related to the HOA. But I keep it with me because it is easier than juggling cloud accounts on job sites. I need to move fast. The bluff deadline is real, even if the notice is fake. Allison has a history of weaponizing deadlines to force people into mistakes. I text my buddy Marcus, a former board member who left the HOA 2 years ago after a fight with Allison over budgets. He kept copies of everything, and he has warned me before that Allison plays dirty. He texts back in under a minute. Come by now, I have something you need to see. I drive over to his place, a few blocks away in the same neighborhood. He meets me at the door and does not waste time. He hands me a manila folder with old board minutes and a printed gate fob log from 6 months ago. He says Allison has been using her treasurer access to cover vendor kickbacks, and if she is accusing me of theft, it is probably because she is trying to redirect attention. The gate log is a printout with timestamps and fob numbers, no readable text. But Marcus points to a row of entries and says those are Allison's late-night access trips to the clubhouse when no meetings were scheduled. He says she has been taking petty cash and blaming residents for months. I ask if he will testify, and he says his name has to stay out of it or she will retaliate. That is the side complication. I thank him and take the folder. I drive to the management company office on the south side of Denver. The Desert Palms Community Association contracts with a third-party firm, and I am hoping the staff there will at least listen before Allison poisons the well. I walk in and the receptionist looks up. I say I need to file a formal records request for all complaints filed against my address in the last year, plus access logs for the storage closet and the clubhouse safe. She nods and starts typing, and then Allison walks in from the back hallway. She must have called ahead. She tells the receptionist to refuse my packet and to send me away. That is the vendor pressure move. The receptionist looks uncomfortable and says she has to process requests if they are in writing. I hand over a printed form I filled out in the truck. Allison snatches it out of the receptionist's hand and says the request is invalid because I did not use the updated form template. I ask what updated template, and she says it was posted on the portal yesterday. I pull out my phone and show the portal. No new template. The receptionist clears her throat and says she can process the old form. Allison glares at her and says the board will hear about this. Then she turns to me and says the hearing is still happening at 5, and if I am not there, the board will assume I am guilty. She leaves, still clutching the red folder, and the receptionist prints me a receipt for the request. She says it will take 3 business days. I do not have 3 days. I thank her and walk out. It is almost 3 in the afternoon. I drive back to the neighborhood and park near the mailbox cluster, hoping to catch a few residents who might have seen something. Allison is already there, talking to 2 neighbors by the metal mailbox units. She sees me and raises her voice. She says I have been stealing packages from the cluster for weeks, and now the HOA has proof. One of the neighbors, an older guy I have seen at pool parties, looks uncomfortable. The other one, a younger woman, folds her arms and asks what proof. Allison pulls out her phone and shows them a photo. I cannot see the screen, but she says it is a doorbell camera clip of me near the mailboxes late at night. That is the frame-up method. She is using the mailbox cluster as the rumor spread point because everyone checks their mail here and gossip moves fast. The older guy asks why she did not go to the police. Allison says the HOA handles internal matters first, and then she looks at me and says we can tow first and explain later. She says it again. That boomerang line. I stay calm and say I am happy to cooperate with any investigation, but I want to see the footage. She says it is board-only evidence and I am not allowed. The younger woman shakes her head and says that does not sound right. Allison snaps at her and says she does not understand HOA governance. The woman walks away. The older guy lingers, and I ask if he saw anything unusual at the clubhouse recently. He says no, but he heard Allison had a disagreement with the landscaping vendor last month and they stopped showing up. I thank him and make another mental note. I get back in the truck and check my phone. Marcus has texted again. He says Allison escalated the rumor into a safety alert in the neighborhood chat. I open the chat app and scroll. There it is. Allison posted a message saying a resident with clubhouse access has been linked to missing inventory and that the board is taking immediate action. She does not name me directly, but everyone knows who she means because she mentioned my business license in the thread. People are already replying. Some are skeptical, some are piling on. One person says they saw me near the storage closet last month, which is true because I was dropping off pool furniture for a community event, but now it sounds suspicious. That is escalation step 2. The rumor is now a safety alert, and it is spreading faster than I can respond. I type a reply saying I am cooperating fully and have requested records to clear my name. Someone replies with a laughing emoji. I close the app and sit there for a minute, gripping the steering wheel. I need harder evidence, and I need it now. If you are enjoying this HOA chaos, smash that like button and subscribe for more neighborhood drama and revenge stories. I call the tow company that the HOA uses. The number is on a sticker inside the clubhouse, and I saved it months ago when Allison threatened to tow my truck over a parking permit issue. A guy answers, and I ask if the HOA has requested any tows today. He says he cannot give out that information. I say I am a resident, and I am trying to verify a threat made by the board treasurer. He pauses, and then he says Allison called this morning asking about tow protocols for vehicles with expired registrations, but she did not submit a formal request. I ask if that is normal, and he says no. Usually the management company handles it. He says Allison has called him directly a few times in the past, and it always feels off. I thank him and hang up. That is interesting. Marcus said Allison had a personal arrangement with vendors. I am starting to see it. I pull up the HOA bylaws on my phone and search for the towing policy. It says all tow requests must go through the management company and be documented in the board minutes. If Allison is calling vendors directly, she is bypassing the process. That is a violation. I screenshot the bylaw and save it to my phone. It is almost 4. I have 1 hour before the supposed hearing. I drive to the clubhouse and park in the lot. Allison's car is there, and so is another board member's car. I walk up to the front door and try the handle. Locked. I knock, and Allison opens it. She is still wearing the black trench coat and visor, and she has the red folder in one hand. She does not let me in. She says the hearing is closed session, and I am not allowed until my testimony slot. I ask when that is, and she says 5:15. I say that does not give me time to prepare, and she says I had all day. She starts to close the door, and I wedge my foot in the frame. I say I want to see the complaint forms again. She sighs and pulls them out of the red folder. 2 identical forms, side by side like before. I lean in and try to read them, and this time I notice something. The signatures at the bottom are identical. Not similar. Identical. Same pen stroke, same spacing, same loop on the capital letter. Someone copied and pasted a signature, or they forged it. I pull out my phone and take a quick photo before she can stop me. She yanks the papers back and says I am not allowed to photograph board documents. I say the forms are evidence and an accusation against me, so I have a right to document them. She slams the door in my face. I stand there for a second, staring at the closed door, and then I hear her voice inside, muffled but loud. She is on the phone, and she is saying my name. I walk around the side of the clubhouse to the window and crouch down. I can see her through the glass, pacing and talking. She says something about the tow company and needing it done tonight. Then she says the resident has been pressured to sign a complaint, and if anyone asks, she will say it was voluntary. I pull out my phone and start recording audio. It is risky, but Colorado is a one-party consent state, and I am a party to this conversation if she is talking about me. She hangs up and sits down at a table, and I see another person walk into the room. I do not recognize them, but they hand Allison a piece of paper, and she nods. I walk back to my truck and sit in the driver's seat. I have the audio recording, the photo of the identical signatures, the gate fob log from Marcus, and the tow company's comment about Allison's direct calls. I also have the bylaw screenshot showing she is violating procedure. It is not enough to prove she stole anything, but it is enough to prove she is lying about me. I check the time. 4:30. I text Marcus and ask if he can meet me at the management office at 5:30. He says yes. I drive back to the management office and park in the lot. The receptionist is still there, and she looks surprised to see me again. I ask if the manager is available. She says he left for the day, but he will be back tomorrow morning. I ask if I can leave a message, and she hands me a notepad. I write a short note saying I have evidence of procedural violations by the board treasurer and I need an emergency meeting. I leave my phone number and hand the notepad back. She says she will make sure he gets it. I thank her and sit in the waiting area. At 5:15, my phone rings. It is Allison. I do not answer. She leaves a voicemail. I play it on speaker so the receptionist can hear. Allison says I missed my testimony slot, and the board is moving forward with a finding of guilt. She says the HOA will bill me for the investigation, and they are suspending my clubhouse access pending payment. She also says they are forwarding the matter to the city to review my business license. I look at the receptionist, and she looks back at me with wide eyes. I say that is retaliation, and it is based on false evidence. She nods slowly and says I should document everything. I say I am. I ask if she can print the office access logs for today, showing what time Allison arrived and left. She hesitates, and then she says she is not supposed to, but she prints them anyway and hands me the sheet. No readable text, but I can see the timestamps. Allison was here at 2:45 right after I filed my records request, and she left at 3. That matches the timeline. I thank the receptionist and fold the sheet into my pocket. At 5:30, Marcus walks in. He looks nervous, but he sits down next to me in the waiting area. I show him the photo of the identical signatures, and he whistles. He says that is forgery, and if Allison used a resident's name without permission, that is fraud. I play him the voicemail, and he shakes his head. He says Allison has been doing this for years, but no one has ever had enough proof to stop her. I ask if he knows who the resident is that was pressured to sign. He says it might be a guy named Tom, who lives 2 buildings over and has been on the receiving end of Allison's complaints before. I ask if Tom would talk to me, and Marcus says maybe, if I approach him carefully. We leave the management office and drive to Tom's building. Marcus knocks on the door, and Tom answers. He is younger than I expected, maybe late 20s, and he looks exhausted. Marcus introduces me and explains the situation. Tom sighs and says Allison came by his place 2 days ago and told him she needed his signature on a complaint form about noise violations in the neighborhood. He says he did not read it carefully. He just signed it because he wanted her to leave. I ask if he remembers what the form said, and he says no, but Allison told him it was routine. I show him the photo of the identical signatures, and he leans in. He says that is not his signature. It is close, but the middle initial is wrong. I ask if he is willing to make a statement, and he says yes, but only if his name stays out of the official record until the legal part is over. I promise to protect him as much as I can. He writes a short statement on his phone and emails it to me. I thank him and Marcus, and we leave. It is almost 6. I drive back to my place and sit at my kitchen table, spreading out everything I have. The photo of the forged signatures. The gate fob log from Marcus. The office access log from the receptionist. Tom's statement. The audio recording of Allison talking about pressuring a resident. The bylaw screenshot. The tow company's comment. It is a lot, but it is scattered. I need one clean reveal that ties it all together. I look at the gate fob log again, and something clicks. The timestamps show Allison accessing the clubhouse storage closet at 11 at night 3 times in the last 6 months. The same closet where the inventory supposedly went missing. If she had access, and she is the one accusing me, then she is the one who could have taken it. I pull up the HOA portal and log into the shared calendar. There were no board meetings scheduled on those nights. No events. No reason for her to be there. I screenshot the calendar and save it next to the gate log. That is the evidence package. I spend the next hour writing a formal complaint to the management company, attaching every piece of evidence, and requesting an immediate audit of the treasurer's records. I also request that Allison be removed from her role pending investigation. I send the email at 7 and copy the entire board. Then I wait. The next morning, my phone rings at 8. It is the management company manager. He says he received my complaint and he has been reviewing the evidence. He sounds serious. He says the board is meeting this afternoon at 4 to discuss the matter, and Allison has been asked to attend. He says I am invited to present my evidence in person, if I want. I say yes. He gives me the address, the management company office, and says to arrive at 3:45. I thank him and hang up. I spend the rest of the morning organizing my evidence into a binder. I print everything, label it, and tab it so I can flip to any page quickly. The red folder Allison carries has nothing on this. At 3:30, I drive to the management office. Marcus texts and says he is coming too as moral support. I tell him to wait in the parking lot in case I need him. When I walk into the office, the receptionist waves me back to a conference room. The manager is there, along with 2 other board members I recognize, and one I do not. Allison is sitting at the far end of the table, and she has the red folder in front of her. She sees me, and her face goes tight. The manager starts the meeting by saying they are here to review my complaint and Allison's response. He asks me to present my evidence first. I open the binder and walk through it piece by piece. The forged signatures. The gate fob log showing Allison's late-night access. The office access log showing she was at the management office right after I filed my records request. Tom's statement about being pressured to sign a form he did not read. The audio recording of Allison talking about pressuring a resident. The bylaw screenshot showing she violated towing procedures. The tow company's comment about her direct calls. The shared calendar showing no meetings on the nights she accessed the clubhouse. I take my time, and I stay calm. When I finish, the manager looks at Allison and asks for her response. Allison says I am lying and that the evidence is fabricated. She says the gate fob log is old and irrelevant. She says the audio recording is illegal. She says Tom's statement is hearsay. She says the signatures are not forged, they are just similar because the forms use a template. The manager stops her and says the signatures are identical, not similar, and that is a problem. He asks if she has an explanation. She does not. She says she does not remember those specific forms. The manager flips through his own folder and pulls out a printed copy of the neighborhood chat safety alert. He says Allison posted this without board approval, and it violates the communication policy. He asks why. She says it was an emergency. He says there is no record of an emergency meeting. One of the other board members, a woman I have seen at community events, speaks up. She says she has been uncomfortable with Allison's handling of vendor relationships for months, and this evidence confirms her concerns. She says she wants a full audit of the treasurer's accounts. The other board member nods. Allison stands up and says she is not going to sit here and be accused by a resident who clearly has an agenda. She picks up the red folder and starts to leave. The manager says if she walks out, the board will vote to remove her from her role immediately. She stops. She turns around and says, "You cannot do that." He says they can, and they will if she does not cooperate. She sits back down, but she does not put the folder on the table. She clutches it in her lap like it is a life raft. The manager says they are going to take a short break and reconvene in 15 minutes. Everyone stands up, and I walk out to the parking lot. Marcus is waiting by my truck. I tell him what happened, and he grins. He says Allison is done. I say I hope so. We go back inside, and the meeting resumes. The manager says the board has voted to suspend Allison from her role as treasurer pending a full audit, He says they are also rescinding the investigation charge against me and restoring my Clubhouse access. He says the complaint forms with the forged signatures will be referred to the HOA attorney for review, and if the attorney determines there was fraud, they will file a report with the Denver police. Allison does not say anything. She just sits there, staring at the table. The manager says they are also terminating the tow-vendor relationship because Allison's direct calls violated the management agreement. That is the HOA consequence. He says Allison will be required to turn over all board files and keys by the end of the week. He asks if I have any questions. I say no. He thanks me for bringing the evidence forward and says the board takes these matters seriously. The meeting ends, and everyone starts to leave. Allison stays in her seat. I walk past her, and she does not look up. I do not say anything. I just leave. Outside, Marcus is waiting by the door. He says he could hear the yelling from the parking lot. I laugh and say it was not that loud. He says it sounded pretty loud. We walk to the parking lot, and I see Allison come out of the building. She is on her phone, and she is talking fast. I cannot hear what she is saying, but her hands are moving, and she looks panicked. She gets in her car and drives off. Marcus says that is the last we will see of her. I say I doubt it. 2 days later, I get an email from the management company. The audit is complete, and they found discrepancies in the petty cash and vendor payment records. The HOA attorney has filed a report with the Denver police, and Allison has resigned from the board. The email also says the board is implementing new financial controls and oversight procedures to prevent future issues. I forward the email to Tom and thank him for his help. He replies with a thumbs-up emoji. A week later, I am at the mailbox cluster picking up a package when the older guy I talked to before walks up. He says he heard what happened with Allison, and he is glad someone finally stood up to her. He says she has been running the HOA like her personal fiefdom for years, and people were afraid to push back. I say I just wanted to clear my name. He says I did more than that. He says the new treasurer is already making changes, and people are noticing. I thank him and walk back to my truck. On the way, I pass the clubhouse. The stash box is gone. I do not know who it belonged to or what was in it, but it does not matter anymore. Allison tried to use it as a weapon, and it backfired. That is the funny karma beat. She claimed she never touched the item, and then someone's doorbell camera clip showed her carrying it from the clubhouse to the planter area the morning before she accused me. The board reviewed the clip during the audit, and it was the final nail. She had been using the stash box to move stolen petty cash and small items out of the clubhouse, and when she realized someone might have seen it, she tried to frame me to cover her tracks. It did not work. The following week, I get a call from the tow company. The guy I talked to before is on the line, and he says he wanted to give me a heads up. He says Allison tried to call him again last night, asking if he could tow my truck for an expired registration. He says he told her the HOA terminated their contract, and he is not taking any more calls from her. He says she got angry and hung up. I thank him and say I appreciate the warning. He says no problem, and he hopes things settle down. I hang up and sit there for a minute, thinking about everything that happened. Allison tried to destroy my business license, my reputation, and my access to my own community, all to cover up her own theft. She used fake forms, forged signatures, weaponized deadlines, and pressured residents into false complaints. She called vendors directly to bypass oversight and tried to tow my truck as retaliation. And in the end, she lost everything because I had proof. The gate fob log, the office access log, the audio recording, the forged signatures, the doorbell camera clip. Every piece of evidence stacked up until there was no way out. The board had no choice but to act. The management company had no choice but to report it. And the police had no choice but to investigate. I also found out later that Allison had a personal arrangement with the tow vendor that the board did not know about. She was getting a kickback for every tow she authorized, which is why she was so aggressive about calling them directly. The twist came out during the audit when the vendor's invoices did not match the board's records. The vendor admitted to the arrangement under pressure from the management company, and that was the final piece. The HOA terminated the vendor relationship, and the vendor stopped taking Karen's calls. That is the vendor consequence. Allison tried to use the tow threat as leverage against me, and it ended up exposing her own corruption. We can tow first and explain later. She said it twice, and both times it sounded like a threat. But in the end, the tow vendor refused her orders, and the board learned she had been violating the management agreement for months. The boomerang was perfect. The board also implemented a new rule requiring all vendor communications to go through the management company, with copies sent to the board president. No more direct calls. No more under-the-table arrangements. No more treasurer having unilateral control. The new treasurer is a retired accountant who takes transparency seriously, and he has already started publishing monthly financial reports on the HOA portal. People are actually reading them. The neighborhood chat is quieter now. No more safety alerts. No more rumors. Just normal HOA stuff, like pool maintenance schedules and landscaping updates. I still see some of the residents who watched Allison try to frame me, and they nod or wave like nothing happened. A few have apologized. Most just pretend they were never part of it. That is fine. I am not here to hold grudges. I just want to live in peace and run my business without someone trying to destroy me over fake theft accusations. A month after everything settled, I ran into Tom at the grocery store. He thanked me again for keeping his name out of the main filing, and he said he heard Allison moved out of the neighborhood. I said I heard the same thing. He said good riddance, and I agreed. We talked for a few minutes about nothing important, and then we went our separate ways. It felt normal, and that was nice. Marcus texted me a few days later with a news article link. The Denver police had charged Allison with theft and fraud related to the HOA investigation. The article did not name the HOA, but it mentioned a community association treasurer in Denver who had been embezzling funds and falsifying records. I read the article twice and then deleted the text. I did not need to keep thinking about it. It was over. The legal system was handling it. My name was clear. My business license was intact. My Clubhouse access was restored. I had won, not because I got lucky, but because I gathered proof and used it strategically. I played by the rules, and the rules worked. The final humiliation moment came during the audit presentation at a special board meeting I was invited to attend. The new treasurer stood at the front of the conference room and read the access log out loud, line by line, showing every time Allison had entered the Clubhouse storage closet outside of scheduled meetings. The timestamps matched perfectly with the missing inventory reports. When he finished, he looked around the room and said the log points away from every other resident and directly at the former treasurer. Allison was not there. She had already resigned and stopped attending meetings. But everyone else was there, including the board members who had defended her before, and the silence was heavy. No one said anything for a long moment, and then the board president cleared his throat and said they owed me an apology. I said thank you and left it at that. There was no need to pile on. The facts spoke for themselves. The access log was the smoking gun, and it could not be explained away. That was the moment the board fully turned against Allison, and it was the moment I knew the payback was complete. I kept the evidence binder on a shelf in my office for a while, just in case. But after a few months, I moved it to a box in the garage. I did not need it anymore. The HOA had new leadership, new policies, and new transparency. The neighborhood felt different. People were more willing to speak up, more willing to question the board, more willing to hold leadership accountable. That was the real win. Not just clearing my name, but changing the culture. Allison had ruled through fear and manipulation for years, and no one had been able to stop her. But once someone did, once someone stood up with proof and refused to back down, the whole system shifted. Other residents started asking for records. Other residents started attending board meetings. Other residents started demanding answers. The HOA was still annoying, because every HOA is annoying, but it was no longer toxic. That mattered. I also made a point to stay involved. I started attending board meetings every month, not because I wanted to run for the board, but because I wanted to make sure no one else pulled what Allison pulled. I asked questions. I reviewed the financial reports. I checked the vendor contracts. I kept copies of everything. Marcus joined me sometimes, and we became the unofficial accountability team. The board tolerated us because they knew we were not trying to cause trouble. We were just trying to keep things honest. And honestly, after what happened with Allison, they appreciated the oversight. No one wanted another scandal. No one wanted another audit. No one wanted another police report. So they played it straight, and we made sure they did. Looking back, the whole thing could have gone differently. If I had not kept my cool during the mailbox confrontation. If I had not gathered every piece of evidence. If I had not found Marcus and Tom and the tow vendor and the receptionist. If I had not documented everything and built a case that could not be ignored. Allison would have won. She would have billed me for the investigation. She would have suspended my clubhouse access. She would have gotten my business license revoked. She would have spread the rumor that I was a thief, and people would have believed her. Because she was the treasurer and I was just a resident. But I did not let that happen. I fought back with paper trails and witnesses and lawful revenge, and I won. Not because I was smarter or tougher or more powerful, but because I refused to give up and I played the long game. I used the system against itself, and the system worked. That is the lesson. The HOA has power, but it is not unlimited. The board has authority, but it is not absolute. And if you document everything, stay calm, and build a case, you can win. Even against someone like Allison. Even in a neighborhood like Desert Palms. Even when it feels impossible. I still live in the same townhouse. I still run my electrical consulting business. I still park in the same spot and check my mail at the same cluster and use the same clubhouse. But now, when I walk through the neighborhood, I do not feel like I am being watched. I do not feel like someone is waiting for me to make a mistake so they can pounce. I feel like I belong. And that is worth everything. The HOA is still annoying, the rules are still petty, the meetings are still boring. But it is my home, and no one is trying to take it from me anymore. That is the real victory. Not the humiliation of Allison, not the audit, not the police report. The real victory is peace, and I earned it. I hope you enjoyed this HOA drama.